This is the Smart Marketing Show, episode number 183 of Building Trust with Email Newsletters. Brought to you by Serverpress, Maker's Desktop Server. They make local WordPress development easy. Check them out at serverpress.com. And check out Bridget's book, The Definitive Guide to Twitter Marketing. You can find that over on Amazon in paperback or on Kindle. Support us over on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/WP Watercooler, where you can help us out over there. We'd really appreciate it. We're going to be doing a lot more stuff over on Patreon, and I'm hoping that you join us there. I'm Jason Tucker. I'm an IT director and web developer. You can find me at Jason Tucker on Twitter. This is my friend Bridget. She's a marketing consultant. She can be found at Bridget M. Willard on Twitter. Help us out by leaving us a review over on wherever it is that you listen to podcasts. Is it Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or even Spotify? Thank you very much for that. We would really appreciate it if you did that. We are going to be talking to my new friend and Bridget's old friend, Tess. Tess, how you doing? Can you give us a little bit?
Hey, guys.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I am a marketing writer and consultant for the building industry. And my entire career has been home building and remodeling related. And basically that is my geek zone, as Bridget would testify to. I can talk everything, anything and everything to do with shiny kitchens, to stormwater runoff, to political action committee events. So I have done it all, and I am very happy to be here.
It's amazing awesome how much you learn about an industry by writing from it.
Yeah, how about it? How about it? So I've had projects all over the place. So
and now that Jason has his created and perfectly Instagram account with all of his building, you're gonna love knowing Tess, Jason.
I am gonna love knowing Tess. I'm gonna say, Tess, this marketing that this people wrote about this thing that they want me to buy, is this true? What part of it's true?
I can definitely research the heck out of it.
That's awesome.
So like we've talked about landing pages with Jen Miller and setting up nurture campaigns with Amy Hall. And I know that most of our audience comes from the WordPress side, but this show is for anybody who's marketing, right? And so a lot of people ask me, well, why you talk about construction? Because it's exactly the same as web development. You have a scope of work. You have clients who get bids. You have clients who want change orders. You have technical things that clients don't understand. What do you mean you don't know what a glulam beam is? What's wrong with you? So the concepts are exactly the same, that you're nurturing this audience because it's easier to keep a customer than to get a new one, you know? So as we build our web development audience and those kinds of things, having those landing pages and touching points with your customers is so important. And like the way, it's funny, it's ironic, maybe it just is a testimonial test. You sent out your Jottings newsletter, which of course I subscribe to. And you were like, I really want to be on a podcast. I'm like, oh my gosh, kismet, right?
Those are Fridays.
And everything that you talked about in the content of your newsletter just hit me hard. Like, our audience needs this. You know, how being authentic sets you apart, how to increase your word of mouth of referrals. We live on that in the web industry. How to turn your email newsletters into lead gen machines. Like, what should you ask yourself? Like, all of these topics, they're so important to not just the architecture of how you get somebody to subscribe, but now you have them. What are you going to talk about? Right?
Right.
So let's talk about the first thing. How can you set yourself apart in the content of your newsletter? So if you want to hear about the rest of that stuff, watch another episode. We'll link to it in the show notes. So how does being authentic set you apart? And as a caveat, what is the difference between being polite and being authentic?
Right. So, great questions. Everyone approaches email newsletters a little bit differently, right? So, but in our space, whether it's my small firm design remodeling contractors or it's the WordPress realm, we're all small business owners, right? So we don't have the big logos and the big names behind us. We are our brand. So that in itself is one of the ways you can become more authentic. Is just owning it. So I like to tell stories. That's how I connect with people. And through my email newsletter, I tell a story and then transition that story into what I want to talk about, the tip, the trick, the idea that I want to share with my readers. So, and I'll give you an example, Bridget. I'm currently wearing Washington Capitals sweatshirt. Woo, let's go Caps. and here's the thing. So if you've been reading my newsletter for any length of time, you know that I am a huge hockey fan. So we started out, my husband was playing hockey. He learned to play hockey when he was in his late 30s. And he became a hockey ref. And we just started going strong. And we became college hockey fans, where we would go to the NCAA Frozen Four every single year, which is the hockey tournament.
That's fun.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah.
Instead of
And yeah. And then we lived 25 minutes away from Hershey, Pennsylvania for many years, which is the farm team for the Washington Capitals, the Hershey Bears. So we would go to those games. And I would talk about those experiences in my newsletter as part of my quote unquote intro into the newsletter. And what's really interesting about that is that over the years, people have, whether they like hockey or not, they remember that tidbit about me. And I had a experience with a custom builder from Maine who reached out to me. He had been a longtime reader of my newsletter, and he reached out to me and he said, Tess, he said, I want to work with you. He said, I know you're a hockey fan, and even though you're a University of New Hampshire hockey fan, and I'm from the University of Maine, I still want to work with you. So
this is awesome.
So
good.
Those are the types that's how you become authentic. You start sharing bits and pieces of your life. Now we all have different comfort levels with what that looks like, and that's perfectly fine. We have different snippets that we want to share. People that have been reading my newsletter know that I'm a hockey fan. They probably know that I like to hike, that I'm outdoorsy. They probably have followed my moves to and back and forth across the country a few times. And they know those pieces, and that's a connection point. And those connection points then make you memorable. And then go into one of my other points is that it starts to generate those leads, right?
Right.
Because
so, let me just interject right here. Y'all, this is what I've been talking about when I say share something about your personal life on Twitter.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be your social security number or where you live. In fact, it should not be, right? I mean, I accidentally sent my mailing address out to my entire newsletter list. Don't do that. So you know what I mean? Have something where somebody can start a conversation with you. Yeah. And this is something that we really struggle with in our niche, Jason, is a lot of our audience don't like small talk. But small talk is that little bit of small talk from a psychological standpoint is gauging those waters to see if somebody will be interested in having a further conversation with you.
Right.
Okay. And so having that something for them to grasp onto, even if it's just you're into hockey, that's not personal. It's personal in the fact that it's about you, but it's not, it's not Bridget personal, because everybody knows I share probably too much on the internet. And so the other thing I kind of want to get you to talk about a little bit before we go into the word of mouth is Tess, a lot of people say, F this and F that, and I'm like Gary Vee or whatever, and you should be doing this and you should be doing that, or mansplaining, or all these like weird kind of normally would be impolite behaviors, but online we say, I'm just being authentic. Can you kind of address like tonality and how that's reconciled with being authentic in your newsletter?
Sure. Yeah, sure. So if you are going to be brash and have very strong opinions, you are going to also isolate certain folks. And if you're okay with that, and if that's part of who you really want to be as a business, and be seen as a business, then while it doesn't work for Tess, that is also a piece. Having said that, I think that you have to always wear your business hat. I think it's smart to understand that there are pieces of your life that you would like to share. But going off on a rant on social or through your newsletter or on a podcast may not be the best use to market your business. Everyone's different. People have made platforms going off on rants, and that has worked for a lot of people, right? But
here's complaining about WordPress.
Yeah.
Jason and I both raise our hands.
Okay, but here's the thing. So let's double back on that though, Jason, because you are ranting about technical issues with WordPress, right?
Right.
Well, isn't that also a connection point with everybody else who is using WordPress and having the same frustration? So that's a little bit different than telling, than going off and using lots of colorful language or being insanely political or, that's much different. That's a connection point, and that's that I think is different. Once you agree, Bridget, then
100%, because having an opinion, there's no reason to have a show or a platform if you're not going to have some opinion on something, right?
Correct.
Like, I'm going to die on the Oxford Hill, Oxford, Hill. I'm going to die on the Oxford, Hill. Okay. And I can still be friends with Jen Miller and you, who are like journalistic and like that's their training, right? But I'm going to be like, every single time I'm going to be doing that. And it's fine. Like, you can be wrong. It's totally fine. Right?
Bridget, I hate to tell you this. I push all the buttons that Grammarly says are wrong when you send me copy. So it may look like Jen Miller's writing the copy. I don't know.
I proofread the copy. I send you proofread copy.
No, I add lots of commas.
Are you replacing me with a machine?
No.
Are you serious? What are you gonna buy meat Edgar next? You're killing me slowly. I know it was you, Fredo. I know it was you. Oh man, I cannot believe Grammarly is wrong about half the time.
Oh, these are just commas. They're only the commas are the things that I'm adding back in. Sorry, Tess. My apologies that we brought you to this. But
but see, that's funny, right? Because Jason and I can't agree on everything. Otherwise, it's a boring show. In fact, Jen Miller and I used to have a show together, and then we both thought, well, the only thing we don't agree on is Oxford, It's a boring show, right? So let's talk about like word of mouth referrals. So we're all word of mouth. Okay, that's the entire world is word of mouth, even if they don't like to see it. And social media is just a exponential expression of word of mouth.
Right.
However, how is a newsletter helping word of mouth? I'm going to be devil's advocate here because I'm super good at that. Like, I'm going to be like, I don't get how me sending a newsletter is going to help word of mouth. Can you kind of like tell that person how this works?
Sure. So here's the thing. So you send out your email newsletter once a month, every 2 weeks, whatever that is. And what I try to do is I look at my newsletter as a way to continuously stay in front of my readers and the people that I know, right? So, and I consider anybody who knows me as someone who, if I called them up and I said, hey, this is Tess Whitler, they would know who I am without any introduction. And so they know who I am, even though maybe I don't know them as well. And they know what I do. They know that I'm a writer for the construction industry. They may not know the nuances. You know, they may know that I'm a newsletter writer for the construction industry, but they may not know that I do websites or that I do landing pages and those types of things. But because they know that, and I've been in front of them week after week, year after year, they become familiar with what I offer. And so then if they have a buddy at one of their Remodeler Advantage meetings that says, hey, I'm really looking for someone, not just any writer, because I can get that, but I'm looking for someone who really understands the industry, they say, you need to contact Tess Whitler. And that's how the word of, and the same thing would happen in your community, right? And you know, I'm using construction because that's my industry, but it's small businesses. If you're staying in front of someone month after month, year after year with your email newsletter, they're getting to learn to know you, even though you may not know them as well. And then from there, when they stop and they say, okay, well, I need to find someone that does X, they say, oh, we need to contact Bridget Willard.
Oh man,
who does that.
I've been like bad. I like built my drips and then I got bad about my newsletter. I feel convicted. I'm going to write myself a Post-it note right now.
Yeah. That's hard. It's hard, right? Because
I was thinking, I was like, when you're writing one of those, when you're writing that newsletter, or at least the opening paragraph within it or something like that, those are the places that you test that you're writing about hockey or something that makes the newsletter personable. What do you how do you write the rest of that copy? Is the rest of that copy that's not the personable piece? Are you still writing it as Tess, or are you writing it as like the company or the industry, or the like? How are you kind of putting that together? Because I tend to have a issue with when people write things and they write it as almost like third person versus first person, or they're writing about it as themselves, but then they switch it and now they're talking about like, oh, here's how our industry does this versus like, here's how the industry does it. Like they're not putting themselves back into it again. How do you approach that?
Great. So that's actually a really good question. There's a couple of ways you can approach it, and I'll name two big ones that I use. I'll name the one that I kind of use for myself and maybe entrepreneurs use, and then I'll name one that I use for my clients a lot of times. So me, what I do is I do I call it the welcome section. And even though it may not be an actual section in my particular newsletter, it's kind of the, hey, this is what happened the last time we talked. It's like I'm talking to you. And then at some point I'll transition up and I'll say, and this is when this happened, this remind me of this. And then I transition into, for me, it's a marketing tip or a client or a content idea for my particular industry, something like that. So that's one way to do it. It's kind of just, it's almost like writing a letter to a friend. It's, you know, you say, hey, this is what I was doing. And then you have this pivot point where you transition it into the business practice. And then you actually talk about the business practice. So that's one way. And that's pretty effective for me because I'm my own person. Mm-hmm. For a company and for my clients, what we usually do is we actually have a separate section. So I work with my clients to have the intro section, which is, I call it the welcome message. And the welcome message is very defined. It's in a block, and where we talk about the personal things. So some of my clients talk about their grandkids and what they were doing. You know, homeschooling is really big this year. I have another client who lives in the Pittsburgh market who has been able to go to hockey games and football games and those types of things. So they'll post a picture with their kids in front of the Stanley Cup or, you know, those types of things. And then, so that's the welcome section. And then we actually get into a whole other section, which I call like the feature article section or the home tip section, where that's actually an article. It's actually something where they're sharing something. So in my world, it would be a remodeler talking about design ideas for the kitchen, or how to maximize space in the pantry, or the best way to keep your granite countertop clean and cured. So those types of things. So it's very two distinct sections for most of my clients.
So is that a link to their blog post, or is it only for their newsletter list?
So ideally, I mean, probably not ideally. You actually have to test it, right? So with most of my clients, is actually the entire article. Most of my clients. I have a few clients where they do the snippet idea. So they have the article and with the link back to their blog. And they get good click-throughs. So you have to test that. Is your audience more apt to read the newsletter from cover to cover, like a magazine, like the old school magazines? Or are they actually inclined to click it? Regardless of what we do, Bridget, right? We have to put that on our blog then. Yeah. So regardless, that content is going to reside on your blog. So then you can share it on social and get that good SEO juice. But you have to test what works for your audience. With my clients, what I found is most of the time it is the entire article.
Yeah, and that is a good distinction. I'm glad that kind of got brought up. I didn't think you would go there, because we are not our audience. So when I write to my clients who are WordPress developers, I can put a link in there, no problem. And the people who write newsletters like that to more people like me do that. However, as web developers who have clients that are normal people or people not in that industry, you got to understand, like, what are they going to do? You have their attention right now, right? They're on their phone reading your thing. Mm-hmm. So that is a good thing to test. And you could do like 1 month, do it that way. Or would you do like 3 months in a row and then 3 months, or would you do every other, or A/B test it in Constant Contact? What would you recommend as far as that?
I do the A/B test. So, and it's, so here's the thing, what worked last year, is it going to work this year?
Right.
You have to really know your audience, right? You have to know. And that's one of the points that, we haven't really got there yet, but we can go there now, is like, who is your audience? Mm-hmm. Right. So you have to know, if you have a newsletter, it's all about you, and all about what you want to share. Like, you want to share that you have this great special, or this 20% discount on flooring, or whatever it is. I'm not saying you don't include those, but you have to make it about them. You have to make your newsletter content about what they want to hear. So you have to really understand your audience. And, if your audience is more inclined to scroll on their phone, then you also have to format and write the content and format in such a way that it's scrollable, with lots of bullet points, bold, pictures. I use a ton of pictures. Most email people will say, don't use a lot of pictures. Well, in my market, pretty kitchens and pretty bathrooms is what catches the eye. And then all of a sudden they're scrolling on their phone or their tablet and they say, oh, well, let me actually read more about this, because this is kind of a cool project. Whereas with your audience, Bridget, it's completely different. We are inclined, when we get your newsletter, to click. We know to do that. Right. And we want to do that.
You know your audience, but then you kind of train your audience. Mm-hmm. And so, like with construction, it's more visual. So, for example, if our web developer that's listening, Bob, the web developer, has a case study of how he redesigned a website, then that would be a good image to include in that specific newsletter, because that specific newsletter is about having a redesign.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And you're right, because like we were talking to Amy Hall, and she's always told me like no images, and I do it too, because most of the time in Gmail I have to say allow images or not.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, images hang up that process. So there's another layer to the simplicity of that and the deliverability. I think is what she was talking about, was the deliverability. So,
so that it's a picture worth sharing.
Yeah, but thankfully, I'm looking at the metrics of my clients, and they're getting great open rates and they're getting great deliverability rates. So, what we're doing is working. And, then it's obviously those newsletters are driving traffic, driving them to say, oh, you know what? I was thinking about, adding a garage to my house, a detached garage. Maybe I should call them. And so they pick up the phone and they call them, or they email them.
Yeah. And
that makes sense.
Things have changed a lot, even in the roofing industry, since I've left construction in 2015, where almost universally roofing contractors have financing available with Green Sky or somewhere else, and offer military and first responder discounts. Like there was no such thing as a first responder discount for a long time. But 9/11 changed that. Katrina changed that. And we value those. And of course, COVID changed that. So we value those people, and we're showing them, look, hey, we care about helping you finance this too.
Well, and you're bringing up a really good point. So let's play off of that. That's a great reason that's a great thing to mention in your email newsletter often. So things have changed. And so if people don't want to, I'll use your roofing industry example. People are afraid to call a contractor because their roof is deteriorating or even leaking because they don't have the finances. You need to mention that, right? And you need to mention that a lot, because just because you put it in one newsletter doesn't mean, number one, that particular line was read, and number two, that they're going to remember it. We all have really busy lives. Right. So, think small business. Think of the things. That's a great reason to have an email newsletter, right? Is to be able to remind people of the services that you have, of the offerings that you can share, the limited time deals, like you were talking about. Sometimes this doesn't apply to COVID times, but pre-COVID, around Veterans Day or Memorial Day, they'd have, veterans and first responders discounts, where for a limited time they'd have some type of a discount. And those were always incredibly popular, right? So those are the types of things. That's a perfect, thank you for leading that, because that's a perfect reason to have the email newsletters, to be able to showcase your services, your offerings in a non-salesy way. You're just sharing that information with your readers.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting because I had all this reconstructive structural dental work done. I found a grant. So it was 47,000, went down, and I financed 27,000. I am still financing 27,000. So I have a roof. This is a roof. Okay. So if you can finance dental work with Green Sky, you can finance your roof. And it kind of makes me wonder, Jason, if that might be an interesting way for web developers to partner with companies that finance,
Yeah.
because your business needs this thing. Or another thing, like you can't use PPE for that because that's about the paychecks. But if you had gotten other assistance or whatever, like we talk about this all the time in construction or furniture, no money down, right? No money. And this is why I self-publish on Amazon, because there's no money down. I get money 60 days later, right, as royalties, but it doesn't cost me money to make this thing happen, which is part of like the essence of American entrepreneurship, that elbow grease, sweat equity. Right. And our audience really does we are an audience of weekend warriors, right, Jason? I mean,
Oh yeah, by far. You got me thinking about this whole. I've never even thought about that idea of. I mean, not that I do a whole lot um, uh, of web development in that way anymore, but to get to, if you have like a $50,000 project and you needed to break it up into 3 chunks, having one of those systems in place that will kind of help with the not the financing part of it, where it will just kind of pay it out, and then they'll go and do the collections on the other side of it for them.
Right.
There's a lot to that, and I think when you offer those sorts of things, it does kind of add some trust to it as well, because you're saying like, I trust you that you're going to pay me, so here's some things that, or I'm hoping that you're going to trust me to actually get the work done, and it's kind of a vice versa type of situation with that. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I was thinking, I'm like, what other things apply trust within a newsletter that would get people to either do those call to actions that are on there, or even read the entire thing. For me, I have a really hard time when I get a bunch of emails in the mail, or a bunch of emails in, and they all show up at like exactly 8 o'clock in the morning, because
I
everyone
hate
needs
those.
whatever it is. So they just like all slam on you at once.
Delete, 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 delete,
And
delete.
I wake up and I look at my phone and I go, "That's really nice." Swipe. That's really nice. Swipe. How do you break out of that? Like, how do you get it so that I want to read that thing, and I don't want to just like swipe across? I didn't even open it. I didn't even read what was on the thing, because I just thought. But how do you do that? How do you get people to actually want to read those and read them in their entirety, so that way you can actually get the sale or get the information to them or whatever? How do you approach that, Tess?
Sure. So there's, the first thing is the timing, right? So you need, again, going back to knowing your audience. So, I follow a consultant. His name is Michael Katz, and he does newsletters for solopreneurs. I have probably read his stuff for 25 years, a long time. And anyway, and he knows his audience. He's on the East Coast, and he knows that he doesn't want to send things overnight because of exactly what you're saying. You wake up in the morning and you go, whether it's on your phone or whether it's on your laptop or your desktop, the first thing you want to do is you open up your email and you try to get rid of everything that you don't need. Right. So, his advice is, and for his audience, he's just like, well, 10 a.m. works for me, because right. So you have to, right. So you have to experiment with that. There's other marketing agencies that I follow. They are in the building materials realm, and Sundays work. They get great open rates and get great responses on Sundays. So you have to know
warriors.
Yeah. You need to know your audience. So that's one piece of that, Jason. I think the other piece, and more to what I was talking about, Bridget and I were talking about earlier with being authentic, is you have to be that person that people actually want to hear from.
Right.
So you have to be likable? What?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have to actually, so when people see your name come across on the, who is this from? And then the subject line, you have to be that person that, in our world, it's a person, right? It's not Nike or, Starbucks or whatever, and then it's the subject line that gets that gets them intrigued. And it's not a trick, but it's an interesting subject line to make them be like, you know what, I really want to read this today. And as a business owner, you also have to accept the fact that sometimes it's just going to get deleted.
Right.
So that's why, going back to your point, Bridget, that we were talking about earlier, repeat those services, repeat those offers, because there are going to be times when your kids are screaming and you accidentally delete a whole bunch of things and you're like, oh well. There's going to be times when life gets in the way. There's going to be times when you're way too busy to think, in my world, I'm way too busy to think about marketing right now. Tess, delete. I'll come back to you in a month. So
because you're going to email them again.
Yeah.
Right.
That goes back to the whole repetition and being consistent, right?
That's what I messed up on.
Mm-hmm. I have another question. So when you're working out how you're going to send these emails out, and especially if you're going to be applying some personality to it, what do you use as the name that you're using to send from? Are you using your name? Are you using the company's name? Are you doing some amalgamation of your name at a person's name or the company's name or from some, like what's the best way for you to approach that if you're someone who's either starting out with a newsletter or wanting to kind of revitalize an existing one?
Sure. Well, my rule of thumb is people want to do business with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't repeat that one, Bridget. Repeat the second time I said that.
So with other people. That's a different podcast.
Yeah, that is a whole other show. But so people want to do business with other people that they know, they like, and they trust. So what works for most solopreneurs, small business owners, is their own name. If you are known by your company name though, then, and not so much about you, my contractor clients, for example, then you email under their name. Or, so I email under my contractor's business name, but when it comes to us and our businesses, I email under my name. I think I just made that much more confusing than it needed to be.
Well,
that makes sense.
You could make it like Bridget at Riggins Construction.
Yes.
Or if you're like Bob, which Bob? Like who? Bob at TechSmith, Jason at Old Navy.
Yeah, and you have to. And I don't know if Amy talked about this or not, but you have to know the characters too, right? You have to know how many characters become visible. I mean, this is getting way too technical probably for this show, but you have to know how many characters are visible on your mobile devices and how many characters are visible on your desktop and laptops too, to get that just right. So it doesn't get cut off.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, like, I've worked with a lot of plugin developers.
Mm-hmm.
So, a lot of times they don't, it's just reminding me because of the Weekend Warrior thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to experience this at Give. We got a lot of support requests on the weekends. Guess when most plugin developers don't do support?
Weekends.
Yeah.
So like going to your audience, like you saying that, Tess, about the building materials people doing so well on Sunday, that's like Jason, I used to say Fridays where emails go to die, unless you're a restaurant or a clothing person, like shopping, like weekend things. So it's, it's kind of like also, when are you going to be available? So recently we had Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And also Black Friday isn't for you people on e-commerce. So step off. But whatever. So then you send a Black Friday thing out, right, on Friday to buy your online thing, and then you're not available for the next 2 days.
I know.
Yeah.
That's no bueno. So if you're gonna, so I know we're coming to kind of the end of this section, but how do you coach your clients on timing versus support? Meaning, if you're going to announce this sale, right, and then maybe you don't have people answering the phone or enough people bidding on projects, like how do you deal with that issue?
You got to put the human factor into it, right? So, if you say, okay, I want this to go out on the second Thursday of every single month, but you're going to be gone for a long weekend with the family, be human. Right. Adjust that schedule. And I've done that an awful lot with my clients. They're like, oh, well, we're going to be away, we're going to be at our beach location, for the long weekend with the grandkids. Okay, then let's adjust. So when are you going to be home, or when are you going to be available for answering questions and returning and responding to emails in a timely fashion? It's the human factor, right? So, going back to, your web developers, and a lot of times there's no support on the weekends, kudos to the web developers that do have that support team on the weekends. I mean, again, that could probably be another show. There's all kinds of tools that the home building industry is using to have 24/7 support without actually manning someone at an office, but that would, that's just common sense, right?
Well, they just come to Twitter. That's why I know about it. I know if I'm managing an account, I know when you're not on your support tickets.
Yeah.
And I do the same thing. I'm upset with Molina Healthcare. As anybody who's I've lost a lot of billable time just trying to get estrogen this month. It's ridiculous. But that's what we do. We go to Twitter. So
yeah.
I got my driver's license renewed because I had to go to Twitter because I couldn't get them on the phone. And I couldn't get them to respond to email. I couldn't get them on the phone. We were, Virginia is such a way that you are taxed by the county that you live, and we had moved to a different county, and we couldn't get our home address changed because that goes through the DMV. So I had spent months, I think it was like 3 months, trying to get a hold of the DMV. It was all during this COVID thing. I get it.
Right.
But I finally went to Twitter and complained, and within like 24 hours, the whole thing was resolved. Now, we still had to wait another 3 months to actually get into the DMV to change it, but it was resolved. It was in the process of being resolved. I'm ranting. But I share those stories in my email newsletter.
I mean, that would be a good segue, right? Like, hey, this happened to me, and because I think what a lot of people don't do, right, Jason, is exercise that empathy muscle of, what do you do as a customer? How I'm always asking people, how many of you use hashtags on Facebook? And they all raise their hand. And then I say, how many of you click on hashtags on Facebook? And one person raises their hand. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, look around, you're not even doing what you want your people to do, right? So like, how do you... Okay, I know we never got to this question, and we're almost done with this section of the show, but it's clearly we need to have you on again.
Oh, darn.
If you'll be, I know, shucks. But like, what is the first question that someone should ask before they start their newsletter?
Let me see if Jason's been paying attention. What have we been emphasizing during this entire show?
Being personable, like being
know your audience.
Oh, know your audience. Well, of course, know your audience.
And we haven't talked about it, but the other piece that we haven't even touched on, and I know Bridget, you're familiar with this too, is segmentation. So you have this big list of 500 or 1,000 or even more names, and you're gonna what do you do when you have 4 or 5 different audiences within that? You have to segment your list. So then you have your email newsletters that go out to those and talk specifically to those.
Fine, Tess, we'll have you back. Jeez. Oh my God. Segmentation. Goodness
I just had to throw that in there because I know that someone's going to be watching this at some point and be like, you know what? She doesn't know what she's talking about because she never even mentioned segmentation. Well,
because we were specifically talking about the content, like because I know that as a writer, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to anyway. I hate this. You got to tell a story. Like, I hate that. Like, when I think story, it was a dark and stormy night, and the moon was out. All you could see was the shadow on the puddle. And then snap, what's behind you? That's what I think of. Instead, you're just like, oh, you mean be a normal human being? Oh, yeah, I was in Lowe's the other day, and I couldn't find the 3/4 inch bolts. So, I found the guy in the blue vest. And, that reminds me, are you available to your customers? I don't think of that as storytelling. I think of that as being a normal human being.
Yeah.
I don't want to listen to your story. If I want a story, I'll watch Netflix. I just want to know how this relates to me. Right. So do you ever have to explain that to your clients when you're talking to them? Or is it
you have. Yeah, I mean, I say storytelling because, that's what I've learned, but yeah, absolutely. You make a really good point. Sometimes us marketers, us writers need to kind of bring it back down to a more human level and just say this is. And so that's one of the things I coach my clients on is becoming familiar with or coming uh, uh, comfortable with being able to share those pieces of your story, of your life that transition into what you want to talk about.
I like that. That's
Shall
great.
we jump into tool or tip of the week?
Yes.
What do you got, Bridget? What's your tool or tip of the week for this week?
Holy Toledo. Did I talk about Noom yet?
Ooh, no, you haven't. Nope, you haven't.
Okay, I was going to save it. So Noom is not free. It is a subscription based app to change your relationship with food is how they market it. I've heard about it a lot and I've been doing my own thing. I've been on billions of diets, Weight Watchers to my actual endocrinologist giving me one. I've lost weight, blah, 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 blah. I became ill, blah, 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 and then, I'm doing my exercise and all this other stuff. Like I walk, I do yoga, and I do strength training. What I've changed starting December 27th to now is two things: intermittent fasting and Noom. So I've lost 12 pounds. I'm super excited to be 220 pounds, which I never thought I would say out loud. But I'm getting closer to like where I got down to before my hysterectomy a year and a half ago, which was 215. And I literally just want to be 185. Like I'm fine being overweight. I don't have body issues. I'm gorgeous. Like I'm flicking off the men. Like I don't have that problem. But like I don't want to be old and falling in the shower and breaking my hip either. Like this is honestly my grandmother living to 101 has completely freaked me out. So Noom is is basically a course like Chris Badgett would do on Lifter LMS. And you go through this thing like Duolingo, and it's like 5 to 7 minutes a day of these broken up courses in 1 to 3 minutes, teaches you about food portions, teaches you about diet, teaches you about it also teaches you some behavioral tricks. It's based in cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yep.
Okay. You do their survey, and based upon the survey answers, they recommend things toward you. Now, I told them my goal is 185, not 145, which is the top weight the government wants me to be at. And I told them I want to do it slow. Like I like that I can do it in my own timing, on my own way, and not be all shamed by stepping on a scale in front of a whole room of people or being in some group. Now that this comes with a coach who's your personal coach. Mine is Emily. And then you have a group, which I hate groups. So I just click it so I can see they want you to participate in the group. I'm not participating in the group. I'm not a group person. So I just get rid of that notification. So anyway, it's based in science, sociology, and psychology. Okay. And based upon your answers to the survey, because I know everybody wants to know how much does it cost. Based upon your answers to the survey, they project how long you will be on this program. Mine is 6 months. So you pay that 6 months right away. There's a free trial that they ask you to you can pay like $2 or $18. And I'll put my referral link in the thing or whatever in case it helps you guys. But the thing is, so it's $23.64, something weird like that. But I paid $148 right away. And somebody was like, "Is that really expensive? It seems expensive." And I thought about it. I really do spend more money on bourbon. Literally. I mean, the Woodford Reserve I got was $34, and that was just basically for a week and a half.
Right.
So, Sarah's trying it now. My sister-in-law did it, and a bunch of other people. And then I was like, you know what? I've tried everything else. Why not? Because for me, I know that my food issues are based in psychology of fear of not having food because I grew up missing meals. That's how poor I grew up. So I don't want to keep that mentality. And also, I was married to a diabetic for 23 years. And I was like, grapes are sin. And they're like, you can eat like 2 cups of grapes and just snack on that. I'm like, what? What? I can eat grapes? This is like candy. You mean I can have like 3 or 4 pieces of fruit in one meal? My education of nutrition was based in living with a diabetic who controlled it by his diet. And that is not what a non-diabetic needs to be on.
Right.
So I thought that like that was totally terrible. And all of a sudden I'm eating between noon and 8 p.m., averaging 1,200 calories a day, down 12 pounds in almost 3 weeks.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
So I didn't want to talk about it until things were happening because, you know me, I'm a skeptic. So,
Right.
yeah, I like it. I'll tell you what I don't like is people pushing things on me when it comes to diet. So do it or don't do it. I really don't care because everybody's bodies are totally different and everything else like that. I'm
Yes.
not like one of those vegans that's going to preach to everybody. But, I also have a book out. So if you want to, like, I have a few of these floating around Amazon. So you can do that too. If you don't like the Noom, then I'm more preachy about Twitter.
Tess, what about you? What do you got as a tool or tip of the week? Something you want to share with us?
I have to kind of go along with what we were a little bit talking about when Jason, you asked the question, how do you get people to actually open your email? One of the keys is to come up with good subject lines. So, and I'm not going to get into that, but one of the tools that I absolutely love, and where's my note? Instead of it's words that sell. It's a book. But instead of saying words that sell, how about words that open emails? So this book has more than 6,000 words and phrases that make the difference between yada, yada, yada and copy that sells. In other words, copy that resonates. So it is a great resource for me. I use it for everything from writing email newsletters to landing pages to thought leadership pieces. Yeah, there you go. It's not very expensive at all. I've probably had this book. I bought it in Tucson. So probably at least 5 years. And it's basically, it's a great thesaurus for those of us who don't like thesaurus. It gives you alternatives to phrases. And I can't, it's on my desk all the time. So,
oh my gosh, I'm putting it on my list right now.
Yeah, it's a great resource. So the beginning is actually, let me see if I can find it.
I was looking for a couple different.
Yeah, like snappy transitions. We were talking about transitions. This is more for selling, but so in our conversation, we were talking about transitioning from sharing a piece of what's happening in your life to a tip that you can actually share with your audience. But they have snappy transitions. Like one of them is, as you can see, as you might imagine, no doubt about it, obviously, comma, ... So it's those types of things that can really help you bring more life to copy. A lot of people get intimidated by writing, but it really isn't. It's really just talking with words, and you're typing it out instead.
I know, and we get in our own weird writing ruts too. So that's on its way to San Antonio right now. Thank you. That was in your hotel.
I love that book.
It was good enough for you. It's good enough for me.
I don't know. I always keep
thin.
about.
It's very thin. I like that
yeah.
too. Like the thesaurus I had in college was like, 5-10 pounds.
Yeah. I always keep about like $10-15 that I know I'm going to have to spend at the end of our show because one of us comes up with something that we just have to buy. Noom's a little bit outside of that impulse buy section, but
it's a lifestyle. I hate it when people say that.
Oh, Oh boy. Well, since we're talking about fitness stuff, and I was trying to think of something that I've used recently, I wanted to share with you one that I use, which is an app called HealthKit.
Oh,
I'm an iPhone user. I'm also an Apple Watch wearer, and between the Apple Watch and the iPhone, I'm able to uh, kind of track my workouts, track my walking, and track all my stuff. So what this thing does is you don't have to put anything into the system at all. All it does is it pulls in the information that your Apple Watch has been collecting as you've been doing your workout. So if you tell
mm,
it, I'm going to do a workout. So like for me, for instance, I grab my dog, I put a leash on him, I walk out the door and I stand there for a second, and then I hold up my watch and I say, start a walking workout. And then Siri instantly kicks into walking workout mode and starts tracking it. I go and do my walk. And then when I'm done, I it shows on the watch that I've been walking. So I hit the button and I say I'm completing my workout. And then seconds later, I get a notification on my phone that's this app. And what this app does is it says like, here's your workout. So it's like I went and walked 1.3 miles. I walked, quarter mile. I walked 2 miles, so on and so forth. So like these are maps of all the places that I've walked throughout the entire time that I'm walking. And whenever I go walk anywhere, I'm constantly changing up my walking. And this is
me
the same
too.
neighborhood. This is the same neighborhood, but I just keep walking different ways every single time. So this thing does all of that, and it does a bunch of metrics. So it tells you like what's my active energy, how many steps did I take. This is horrible to look at in the morning when I just started a podcast. I literally have walked like 20 feet so far. So how long was I in bed? How much of energy did I use? Like all these things. But what's really nice about this app is if you push this thing up on the top here, it can actually output to different places. So you could send it to Final Surge, to Google Sheets, to Self Loops. There's a bunch of these apps that people use that will make it so that you can kind of pull this data in and then push it someplace else. What my sleep cycle is over the past 30 days, what's my energy like, what's my cardio like, tons of information in here about this sort of thing. So you can kind of go through here and look and see, what I've been doing, how much I've been walking, how much am I, doing things. So take a look at this. It gives me a really good example or tells me a really good example as to like what it is that I'm doing and what type of workouts am I actually doing throughout the day.
So is that the Heart, the native Apple, or is that a different app?
This is the app. This is an app that you download that pulls in the native information from
Oh.
what's called on the iPhone and on the Apple Watch HealthKit. So HealthKit is like the database that all this stuff gets stored into.
Oh.
So whenever you do anything on your Apple Watch, that stuff gets saved into HealthKit, and then HealthKit exposes it to all the other applications that are out there. Um,
So I have a
so
question.
yeah,
Do you have to have your phone with you when you have your
mm-mm,
watch on? No.
mm-mm.
Wait, okay, so I know I'm always behind on certain things,
Yeah,
but usually the ones that cost money.
yeah.
So are you saying like I could literally just have my car keys because I'm a single woman and my phone and and an Apple Watch and go
Mhm.
for walking and not have to have my phone on my person?
Yep. And
Well,
if you spent more money, you could get an Apple Watch that has cellular so that if you do get a phone call or if you do need to call for help, you could still do it off of your watch. It's usually about $10 a month extra on your cell phone bill.
maybe that's a good Valentine's Day present for myself.
Yep.
I like it.
I mean,
Yep.
because it's weird to have your phone. Like you don't have pockets when you're wearing all this
I know.
Zia
Yeah.
sportswear and
Yeah.
Lulu whatever and 2XU and whatever.
But it uses the GPS. It uses all that information to just kind of track where it is that you're walking and everything, or running, or doing whatever.
Hmm.
And it just tracks it for you, so you can do that. And then that app that I showed you, that one is just an app that you could download that kind of exposes all of that home health kit information, so you can kind of see it all in one shot.
Interesting.
So yeah, go take a look at that. Well, that's about it for today. Tess, thank you very much. Apparently, we need you on about 5 more times because we keep every time you talked, I was like, yes, we do need to talk about subjects. Yes, we do need to talk about teaser text. Yes, we do need to talk about
Dude, we
segmentation.
could have a whole episode on subjects of teaser text. Just send me an email, Tess, of which Friday you would like in the future, and I'll just book it. I was trying to book it out. I don't have a guest yet for next week, but we'll be having a show on something.
Of course, as we do. But Tess, thank you very much for coming on the show with us. We really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to seeing what folks say about this. If you have any feedback or anything like that, if you want to send us some feedback, you can send us an email at feedback@wpwatercooler.com, and you can do that. And here's our outro. Thank you. Support us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/WPWatercooler. That's where you can help us out over there. We're going to be posting a lot of content over on Patreon, so feel free to do that and take a look at it. See all the fun things that we have going on over there. If you want to subscribe to this content, we'd appreciate it. Subscriptions are free. All you have to do is go over to our website at wpwatercooler.com/subscribe, where you can learn how to subscribe to all of our shows as an audio podcast, or listen to us and watch us on video if you want as well. I want to say thank you very much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. Talk to y'all later.